guys, my name is Janin Tamunan and I make this video to fulfill my assignment from Mr. Lamhot Naibaho about lexical processing and sentence context effects. Here I'm going to talk about lexical processing and sentence context effects. This material is taken from a book written by Matthew and Morton in their book with the title Handbook of Psycholinguistics, 2nd edition. So this material talking about two parts, namely lexical properties and sentence context effects. So I'm going to talk about lexical properties first. So visual word recognition or lexical processing provides the base for constructing meaning from text, as words are the primary meaning bearing element provided to the reader. There are 6 aspects of word meaning and their respective roles in recognizing words in the course of reading for comprehension. Namely, the first is morphology. Morphemes are the smallest meaning bearing units of a word. Most long words in English are composed of more than one morpheme. One of the central questions in psycholinguistic research on morphology concerns the way in which this information is represented in the lexicon. These results suggest that morphological constituents are activated in the course of retrieving lexical representation. Second is word familiarity. Lexical familiarity as assessed by printed word frequency, age of acquisition or AOA, or subjective familiarity rating influences a reader's initial processing time on a word as measured by first fixation duration or guess duration. Readers spend more time on less familiar than on more familiar words of equal length. These differences are observed even when word length, number of syllables, and word initial bigram and trigram frequency are controlled. High frequency words are also more likely to be skipped than low frequency words. In addition to these initial processing time differences, the duration of the first fixation after the low frequency word is often inflated compared to the high frequency case. This is thought to reflect the processing of the low frequency word spilling over onto the next fixation. The third is word class. One way of investigating the role of word meaning in lexical access is to compare the reading behavior on words that differ in the degree to which they convey semantic content. For example, we can consider the extent to which linguistic distinction between content and function words influence processing of those words in text. Content words denote entities, action, and properties. They are derivational, have compositional meaning, and participate in productive compounding. In contrast, function words are defined by the grammatical relation or syntactic function in which they participate. They have little, if any, lexical semantic content, do not participate in productive compounding or contribute to meaning in a compositional way. Because of these linguistic differences, some scholars have suggested that these two classes of words may assess differently. A number of studies have demonstrated that when searching for a target letter in text passages, participants tend to show more detection errors or failure to notice the presence of the target letter for a letter presented in a function word than for the same letter occurring in a content word. The fourth is lexical ambiguity. Lexically ambiguous words possess multiple meanings associated with a single orthographic form, and such as they afford unique opportunities to examine the role of word meaning in lexical assess. In lexical ambiguity, readers initially assess multiple meanings and rapidly select a single interpretation for incorporation into the ongoing representation. The fifth is selective access revisited. Content may influence the relative activation of candidate meanings, but contrary to the selective access view, all meanings are accessed when the form is activated. The frequency of the subordinate interpretation was estimated as the proportion of form frequency equivalent to the meaning bias. There were two control conditions in this experiment. One control was matched to the form frequency of the ambiguous word, and the other was matched to the frequency of the context appropriate meaning. If access is selective, processing of a biased ambiguous word in a context that supports the subordinate interpretation, and processing of an unambiguous word in a printed word frequency equivalent to the subordinate meaning frequency should not differ. The sixth is fate of the unselective meaning. Multiple meanings of an ambiguous word are activated at access, and a single meaning is rapidly selected. Within less than half a second, the context inappropriate meanings of the word no longer show signs of activation. Models of ambiguity resolution have dealt with the change in the state of the unselective meaning in different ways. The recorded access model assumes that lexical activation of unselective meanings passively decay. In contrast, the activation suppression model assumes that the unselective meaning is actively suppressed. The second is sentence context effects. Responses to words that The second is sentence context effects. Responses to words are faster when the word is preceded by a congruent context than when it is preceded by a neutral or incongruent context. The following section reviews the relevant evidence from studies examining the processing of ambiguous and unambiguous words encountered in the course of reading for comprehension. The first is predictability. To predict is to declare or indicate in advance. In this section, the term predictability is used to refer to the extent readers might anticipate the identity of upcoming words based on the context in which they occur. Words that are preceded by semantically related contexts are processed faster than words that are preceded by unrelated contexts, even when the word is not predicted completion generated in a sentence completion. Even when the word is not predicted completion generated in a sentence completion task. These results point to the need to postulate other mechanisms to account for sentence context effects. The second is intralexical priming. Lexical level explanation of sentence context effects on word processing purpose. That contextual facilitation arises from word-to-word associations or intralexical priming. Intralexical priming effects in sentence context using the fast priming paradigm combines properties of reading for comprehension with properties of traditional semantic priming paradigms, minus the need for participants to make an overt response. To use intralexical priming, to boost the activation of the subordinate interpretation of a biased, ambiguous word so that it was assessed without competition from the dominant meaning. The third is interactive sentence context effects. High constraint sentences impose greater feature restriction on the spread of activation through the lexicon. Lexical access is facilitated to the extent that is that its semantic features are shared with the semantic features highlighted by the sentence context. If the sentence activates very general semantic features or a large number of specific features, then many words will be activated. This view makes the interesting prediction that words that are closely related to the predicted target word will only be activated to the extent that they also share semantic features with the context. And the fourth is properties of the discourse representation. The ability of discourse topic to influence lexical access by looking at the influence of topic on lexical ambiguity resolution. Although there is evidence that the message that emerge from the successful synthetic parsing influences lexical processing, there is a little evidence to suggest that synthetic relations per second have any direct influence of lexical activation. Finally, there is a little evidence that linguist devices known to increase the salience of concepts that have been retrieved from long-term memory also influence initial access to that information. So that's all. Thank you. Okay guys, that's all, and if I have many mistakes, I'm so sorry. Thank you.